So with the autumn finally here and with winter kind of around the corner, I know people are looking for some darker, heavier fragrances. And of course, daring is a word or an adjective that comes up quite often. Well, in today's video, I'm going to be going over 10 of the most daring fragrances that you can acquire. I'm also going to be letting you know what makes each one of them so daring. I'm excited to share my list with you, so make sure to stay tuned. Before I begin today's episode and I tell you about these top 10 most daring fragrances, mostly niche as you can imagine, but there are a couple of designers in here as well. I want to start the video off first by saying that if you're a fan of fragrance related content, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it, hit the bell icon and give this video a thumbs up. It would really mean a lot to me. So the first fragrance that I want to talk about is actually a bit of a darker fragrance. And of course, when you think of daring, you think of smoke, you think of incense, you think of resins, you think of woods, you think of spices. Maybe it might put you in a certain frame of mind. Well, this one by Navitus Perform, and this is one that I creatively directed, so that's why I'm putting it towards the bottom of the list. This one is called Emblaze. This one is smoky, it's incensey, there's pink pepper, there's coffee, there's cinnamon, so there's a lot of spices, and this one is also quite smoky as well. The perfumer for this one is Lucas Suzak and Olaf Larsson. Lucas Suzak also did Reflection for Men by Amouage, so he's a highly reputable perfumer. Had the pleasure of meeting him when I went to Spain a few years back, and I love Emblaze, right? You're sitting around the campfire, you spray this stuff on, it's warm, it's sweet, it's spicy, slightly sweet, a little on the ambery side of things as well. There's a touch of labdanum in there too. Okay, so the next one is a designer fragrance, and this one is called Angel for Men. You guys know why this one is daring, right? If you don't, then maybe read the comments down below, but the truth is that people complain about this dreaded tar note that is in there, right? So it's a little rubbery or leathery according to what some people's criticism has been throughout the years. Of course, this came out in the mid-90s, composed by Jacques Couclier. This fragrance has a lot of ethyl maltol, which smells a little bit like cotton candy. It's kind of sweet. It has patchouli, it has vanilla, it has some spices in here as well, a bit of a caramel vibe too. What an amazing fragrance, certainly ahead of its time, but of course, a lot of the other Amen flankers are a lot more wearable according to what people have to say than this one. So pure wood, even pure leather to a certain degree, pure malt, pure Havana, so on and so forth, pure energy. The next fragrance is an incense-based fragrance. It's not going to be the only incense fragrance on this list. This one by Comme des Garçons is called Incense Avignon, two designer brands back to back. With Incense Avignon, you're going to get a Roman Catholic Church type of an incense. The perfumer for this is Bertrand Duchaufour, an amazing perfumer out of Paris, France. He's done some of my favorite fragrances. What makes this one so daring is people are going to think to themselves, do I want to smell like a church? Do I want to smell like incense 24/7? And people will comment on that. They will say, did somebody light incense in here? Or something smells like frankincense in here. So if you smell this one, this is a very, I don't want to use the word photorealistic because there's no imagery per se, at least not in a literal sense, but it's a very organic, very true to form olibanum / frankincense type of a fragrance. More recently, there's also been Iberian Leather by Memo Paris. Now this one is super strong. And a lot of these fragrances become daring because they're beast mode, right? They last a very long time. The projection, the sillage is enormous. That's the case with this one. Resinous, leathery, a little spicy, actually very spicy, but the performance is incredible. Another designer, this one by Gucci, is called, and I almost said the voice of the snake, A Midnight Stroll. I also have The Last Day of Summer, which is a little dark, but A Midnight Stroll is just straight up smoke. The perfumer is Alberto Morillas, and we've seen him use smoke in several other fragrances, even Gucci Guilty Absolute, which is more of like a leather fragrance with a touch of smoke, but this one has a lot of birch in it. So it's very smoky, very dark, very mysterious, very gothic, and for that reason, for a lot of people, it can be kind of hard to wear. The next fragrance is by the brand Zerja, and this one is called Alexandria 3. Now, of course, with Alexandria 2, you have the apple, you have the lavender, you have the Brazilian rosewood, so it's creamy, it's sweet, it's a little oody. And this one, I feel like it has a darker personality. You have the Bulgarian rose in the heart. Super long lasting. The perfumer is Chris Maurice, who has done like 95% of Zerja fragrances, if I'm being honest with you. But this one has a combination of Laotian oud and Thai oud in the dry down. So this one does get a bit oody, if you know what I mean. And a lot of people tend to associate the smell of oud with the barnyard. I'm just gonna put it like that, right? I don't want to get too explicit, but a lot of people do not have a good relationship with the note of agarwood or aloes wood. So this is one that you're going to have to sample first, try it on skin, see if it caters to your personal taste, but I know it's going to be kind of a hard fragrance for a lot of people to pull off. The next one is by Nasomato and it's called Sadao. Now this is the most recent release from the brand. Of course, when you think of daring from this brand, one could easily mention Duro, which is a dark spicy leather amber type of a fragrance. Of course, there's also Black Afghano, which is more of like a coffee, foresty, hemp type of a fragrance. And it also lasts a very long time. These are all extrait de parfum concentration. But the thing with Sadao is you have to look at the advertisement. You have to look at the marketing campaign for this fragrance, and it's quite explicit, if you know what I mean. You can do a quick YouTube search here, or you can look on the brand's official website. But this one is kind of lactonic. It has a touch of sweetness. There's a lot of honey in here. I know honey for a lot of people can be a little bit on the daring side of things just because it comes across a little bit powdery. And yeah, I think just because of a lot of the images that are conveyed on account of this fragrance, the marketing campaign, so on and so forth, it might not resonate with everybody's personal tastes, and that's what makes it daring. And also it's an incredible performer. We also have a fragrance by Blackcliff. This one is called Mr. Pink. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. This is probably the least daring fragrance on this entire list because it does have a bit of that cotton candy appeal, so it does go in a sweeter direction. So all things considered, it's not super daring, but it does have a butyric smell. So it does have a tendency of smelling a little bit like butter. You got to give it a chance to dry down. You're not going to get it right away. You are going to get that overlapping sweetness, and sometimes it can kind of disfigure or disguise a lot of the other elements of this fragrance. But when you really dig your nose into it, you're like, kind of smells like butter. So I think for that reason, not a lot of people would find it to be the safest fragrance to wear. And for that reason, it might also be quite daring for a lot of people. Now, this next one, I really have to be in the mood for. This one is by Filippo Sorcinelli. It's an Italian brand, and this one is called Reliquia, which translates to relic. This fragrance is incense and resins. Now, there is another one called Unum Lavs, which smells very similar to Incense Avignon. This one, however, smells very ancient, very resinous. It smells like a really old tomb. That's kind of what comes to mind. You have to try this one. It's super daring. And I say that only because it's not a mass marketed, mass appealing type of a fragrance. It doesn't have that compliment factor to it. So it's one that you really have to try for yourself and see what I mean when it comes to it having a quote unquote daring personality. And the fragrance that I'm going to put in the number one spot is a fragrance that I've had for well over a decade now. And there's just something about this fragrance, the smoke, the resins, it's dark, it's a beast mode performer. And this is a fragrance that I've always been kind of leery about wearing in public, or I should clarify that, about over applying and going out in public, even though I did it for a challenge many years ago. By Amouage, it's called Interlude for Men. Now, here's the thing. There's Royal Tobacco, there's King Blue, there's Fate. There's a lot of Amouage fragrances, even Opus 6, Opus 7. One of them was composed by Alberto Morillas. It's very smoky. There's a lot of Amouage fragrances that are on the daring side of things, and that's because A, they all perform very, very well. B, they're very experimental and they push the envelope. And C, because they utilize some darker incensey ingredients, and that's all a part of the brand's narrative. It's an Omani brand, so it comes out of Oman. And they do utilize a lot of incense, a lot of natural ingredients, and so that can come across making the fragrance quite dark, quite smoky, so on and so forth. The perfumer for this fragrance is Pierre Negrin. He also did Encounter for Men by Calvin Klein. I know it's kind of a weird connection there, but he has done some really dark fragrances. I haven't seen anything from him in a while, but this one is daring. It's amazing. It's one of my favorites. And I'm going to wait until the winter to wear Interlude. I'm not going to wear it yet, but I did include it in this list just for educational purposes, I suppose. Listen, thank you so much for joining me today. Top 10 most daring fragrances in my collection. Of course, there's a lot of other really daring fragrances. I have one by Kerosene called Copper Skies. I have a lot of really animalic fragrances. Oud Cuir d'Arabie by Montal. There's so many that I could have included in this list, but I chose to just focus on these 10 for the time being. Why don't you go ahead and drop your comment down below. Let me know what are your top 10 most daring fragrances, or if you have one or two. You don't have to leave a lengthy comment, but I always love hearing from you guys. Thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed this video, or if I gave you the opportunity to learn about a brand new fragrance today, why don't you go ahead and show your support to the channel. It's absolutely free. All you have to do is hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, and give this video a thumbs up. Thanks again for watching. I love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow with a new episode. Bye.